What is the appeal of a driving instructor as a career?
So I think driving instructors are self-employed, so there is some flexibility in being able to, be your own boss, choose your own hours, choose your own pricing in terms of what you charge and how you value yourself and things like that.
And is there an uptake? I mean, is this actually happening? Are more and more people turning to it as a principal job, a second job?
So it's always traditionally been a second job, and traditionally, I guess, it is a male-dominated industry, but it's definitely changing, and more people are coming into it earlier and are seeing it as a useful career that they can follow and progress with.
I have to say, it's always sounded to me like a high-stress occupation. I mean, my daughter's learning to drive at the moment.
Yeah.
And I'm having nothing to do with it. She's got a driving instructor who's a lovely guy. But the very idea of sitting beside somebody who can't drive in a car, in traffic, just fills me with cold terror.
Yeah, I think being an examiner, I can understand that's a terror because you're expecting the person to be able to drive and, you're taking them for their assessment and quite often, unfortunately, they're not always able to. But certainly, being an instructor, you build things up step by step by step, and so you can plan for what's happening.
And you do have those. You do have that.
You do. You have
You've got the brake.
You got your brake and you got your clutch down there in a manual, and so you can have that control. Even though they should be rarely used because you're planning your lessons and you're spending that time on the quieter roads and then gradually building it up.
I don't know if you ran across this, but when I was reading into the notes, last year apparently was a year of quiet quitting. A lot of people just drifted away from their jobs for, a different reason for every individual, I'm sure. Do you think we're seeing something about, are people taking stock, do you think?
Yeah, and I've read on that, I know women were much bigger, a percentage of the quiet quitters because of the juggle and kids, and especially like sort of the middle 30, 40-year-old women and stuff. So actually, as you said, you pick your own hours, and I think, the issues with childcare and maintenance and, bed benefits and stuff in this country is very hard for a lot of, women who are the middle ones earning sort of 30 to 50 grand type thing and juggling small children to take jobs and pay for childcare and so actually, and do the 9 to 5. So actually it's it makes sense to go for something they can do.
Do you think we're seeing a societal change there, Nick?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think the interesting thing is we're sort of expecting people to work longer. The retirement age is being bumped for more years, bumped on it. And yet we still have a lot of prejudice against, people over 50, never mind over 60, trying to work. And I think unless you have a very established career by that point, and I think so. It's not really a surprise that we're seeing people drift away from the job market because actually, past a certain point, it's quite difficult for most people.
Is it? I didn't realise that you say it's traditionally a second job. It's not normally.
Sorry, not a second career. So it is people, as you say, sort of reaching that now.
You could fit it around something else if you.
People certainly do fit it around something else. Obviously, there's a challenge because you've got your vehicle there. You kind of want to utilise your vehicle as much as you possibly can. So, but then there are individuals that would perhaps share a vehicle and things like that. So there are some options.
But people come to it as their. After whatever, 10, 15, 20 years doing whatever.
It's amazing how many people come to it and actually say, I've wanted to do this for years. And they've thought about it and thought about it and thought about it, and then eventually, they make that shift and change. But it is changing in the fact that more people are coming into it earlier and are seeing it as that opportunity to, as I say, work it around and have a better life balance. Really.
How much of a rigmarole is it to learn how to be? It's all very well knowing how to drive, but acquiring the skill to pass on that knowledge is different. Yeah. That's a different kettle of fish.
Yeah, it certainly is. I think, it's like with most things, people they look at it, think it's quite straightforward and simple, and ultimately it's not until you get into it that you realise it's a little bit more complex. But certainly if you've been used to coaching somebody, mentoring somebody, half of the population really has already taught somebody, whether it's a family member or or their friends and things like that. So we're all quite sort of used to it. But it is, taking that time to really learn the profession a little bit and make it work for you.
Is there a character trait that lends itself, or is it just that character trait that makes you a teacher?
I think it's that character trait that makes you a teacher because a lot of the time as well, it's actually instructing somebody how to use the pedals, how to use the steering wheel is actually quite easy. But what you spend an awful lot of your time doing is actually building up people's levels of confidence and self-esteem and really encouraging people. It seems like when you sort of get to sort of 17, 18, there was just some things that perhaps you were a little bit more anxious about, and driving sometimes can seem like that, or not wanting to do something wrong. And so sometimes, as a driving instructor, you're doing a lot just to, build confidence in people and actually make sure that they're, going to be ready for their driving test, and of course, not over nervous. Will it be the case if you're a driving instructor that you're always at 17 and 18-year-olds that are in your car? Is that always? No, funny enough, actually, even that's sort of changing a little bit in the fact that people are choosing to perhaps go away, continue education, do other things, and then come back to driving. So the actual average age of learning to drive is actually increasing a little bit. And certainly it also then changes as well, because if somebody has gone away, hasn't learnt to drive, when they do come back to learn to drive, they kind of want to do it a little bit quicker, might go for an automatic vehicle, because again, that's sort of seen as a little bit quicker as well.
I can tell you hand on heart, it's the hardest thing I ever learnt how to do. I was hopeless. As learning how to drive, I found it so counterintuitive. I found it the oddest thing to learn how to do. So to get people through that agony, I take my hat off to driving instructors. So it's great to hear from you. It's a fascinating idea.